Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learn English podcast.
How to make English part of your life. I'm very excited to talk to you today because what I'm about to share with you is something that can completely transform how you learn English and help you make it a natural part of your life. And this is especially important if you are a young learner who wants to grow confidently in your skills. And the first step to making English part of your life is to start seeing it not just as a subject you study in school, but as a tool, a friend, and a window into the world. Because when you change the way you perceive English, it becomes easier to integrate it into your daily routines. And the most practical way to do this is to start small by creating micro habits that involve English every single day. For example, you can begin by labeling things in your house with English words such as the table, chair, fridge, mirror, and even items like your toothbrush or shoes. Because seeing and repeating these words daily will train your brain to associate English with the things you interact with constantly. And another simple habit is to set aside just 10 minutes each morning to speak to yourself in English about your plans for the day, describing aloud what you will do, how you feel, and what you hope to achieve. Because speaking in English daily, even to yourself, creates a rhythm and confidence that no textbook alone can provide. And you can also use technology to help. For instance, changing your phone language to English, following English speaking YouTubers, or listening to English songs and trying to write down the lyrics. And the key is not perfection, but consistency, because making mistakes is part of the learning process. And you can further enhance your learning by creating an English corner in your room where you post inspirational quotes, new vocabulary words, and simple sentences that express your thoughts, feelings, and goals. And another method is to immerse yourself in English stories through reading simple books, comics, or even short articles online. And after reading, try to summarize what you understood in your own words, either spoken or written, because this active engagement reinforces memory and comprehension. And in addition, speaking with others, even online, who are learning English or joining clubs, forums, or classes, gives you practice in real communication. And you can gamify your learning by setting small daily challenges, like learning 5 new words and using them in sentences throughout the day, or recording yourself reading a short paragraph and listening back to notice pronunciation improvements. And reflection is crucial, so spend a few minutes each evening thinking about what you learned, what mistakes you made, and what you can improve tomorrow. And another powerful technique is to use English in your hobbies. For example, if you like cooking, follow English recipes and describe your cooking process aloud in English. Or if you enjoy playing games, watch English tutorials and try to explain strategies in English to friends. Because the more you use English in contexts that interest you, the more natural it becomes. And it's also helpful to create a daily English diary where you write short paragraphs about your day, your feelings, or your dreams. And even if your sentences are simple, over time, you will notice your vocabulary, grammar, and expression improving significantly. And listening is just as important as speaking and writing. So, include English podcasts, cartoons, and audiobooks in your daily routine. And try to shadow them by repeating after the speaker, matching intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation, because this trains your ear and mouth to work together naturally. And to make English truly a part of your life, you must also set personal goals that are meaningful to you, like watching a full English movie without subtitles, chatting with a native speaker online, or giving a short speech in English to your family. And reward yourself when you reach these milestones because positive reinforcement keeps you motivated. And remember that learning English is not just about grammar rules and vocabulary lists, but about expressing yourself, connecting with people, and exploring new ideas. So always find ways to connect English to your emotions, interests, and daily life. And gradually, the habit of thinking, speaking, listening, and even dreaming in English will develop. And it's important to remind yourself that progress takes time. So be patient, persistent, and compassionate with yourself. Because every small step counts, whether it's repeating a phrase, writing a paragraph, or asking a question in English. And over months and years, these small actions compound into a natural ability to communicate confidently. And the journey is also about curiosity. So when you encounter new words, phrases, or cultural ideas in English, explore them, ask questions, and use them in your own sentences. Because curiosity makes learning enjoyable and memorable. And you can also mix in fun creative exercises like making comic strips in English, singing English songs, creating stories, recording podcasts, or even teaching simple English concepts to friends. Because teaching helps reinforce your own learning. And over time, you will notice that English stops feeling like a foreign language and starts to feel like a natural extension of your thoughts and actions. And it becomes something you enjoy rather than something you struggle with. And the most important mindset is to treat English as a lifelong friend, not an obligation. Because when you approach it with joy, exploration, and self expression, it naturally integrates into your life. And you will find yourself using it everywhere, from thinking, planning, and daydreaming to talking to friends, learning new skills, and even enjoying entertainment. And ultimately, making English part of your life is about creating a seamless connection between your everyday experiences and the language. And by combining consistent practice, active use, reflection, curiosity, creativity, goal setting, and persistence, you will gradually find that English is no longer separate from your life, but an integral part of how you think, communicate, and explore the world. And the beauty of this process is that it grows with you, evolves with your interests, and empowers you to connect with people globally, express yourself authentically, and unlock countless opportunities. And the secret to making English truly part of your life lies not in studying harder, but in living it every day, using it, enjoying it, and letting it become part of your identity, part of your habits, and part of how you experience the world. And if you commit to this journey with patience, consistency, and joy, in a few months, you will realize that English has stopped being a challenge and has become a natural, empowering, and exciting part of who you are, which is the ultimate goal for any young learner who dreams of fluency and confidence in communication. Continuing from where we left off, once you have decided to make English part of your daily life, one of the most effective ways to do this is to build structured routines around your interests and energy levels, because consistency beats intensity when it comes to language learning. And the first practical routine is a morning English session where you dedicate 15 to 20 minutes to speaking, reading, and listening, starting with simple exercises such as reading aloud a short paragraph from a children's book, cartoon script, or news article, and then summarizing it in your own words, either verbally or in a notebook, because this active engagement develops comprehension, pronunciation, and confidence simultaneously. And to make it more interactive, you can create mini challenges. For example, try to spot 5 new words each morning, look up their meanings, and then use them in sentences about your plans for the day, which reinforces memory through both reading and application. And during this session, you can also practice shadowing by listening to a native speaker on YouTube, a podcast, or an audiobook, and repeating every sentence exactly as you hear it, matching rhythm, intonation, and stress, because this method trains your brain and mouth to form the English sounds naturally. And if you are shy or anxious, it is okay to start by whispering or recording yourself and listening back, which helps self-correction and gradual improvement. And after your morning session, you can integrate English into everyday activities by labeling objects in your home with sticky notes, writing both the English word and a simple sentence about the object, like, "The chair is brown," or "I sit on the chair to read," because linking words with actions or visuals makes them easier to remember. And you can expand this practice by creating a small English diary where you write 1 or 2 sentences about every activity you do during the day, such as, "I eat breakfast at 7 a.m." or "I watch cartoons in English for fun," which builds both vocabulary and the habit of thinking in English. And to make learning enjoyable, you can turn it into a game by setting weekly goals. For instance, learning 20 new words and using them in 5 sentences each day, rewarding yourself with a small treat, favorite song, or extra screen time, because positive reinforcement motivates consistent effort. And speaking practice can also be social, so you can connect with other learners online or in person, forming a small English club where each member shares a short story, reads aloud, or discusses a simple topic. And you can even role-play daily situations like shopping, ordering food, or asking for directions, because this prepares you for real-life conversations. And listening skills can be strengthened by choosing content you enjoy, such as cartoons, YouTube videos, or songs, and actively listening for words and phrases, writing down anything unfamiliar, then trying to use it in your own sentences, because active listening trains your comprehension and expands vocabulary simultaneously. And another effective technique is to combine English with your hobbies. For example, if you love drawing, describe your artwork in English, explaining colors, shapes, or ideas. Or if you enjoy cooking, follow a recipe in English and describe each step aloud, because connecting English to your passions makes the language feel relevant and fun. And for reading practice, start with graded readers, comic books, or children's stories that match your level, reading aloud first, then silently, and finally, summarizing the story in your own words, either verbally or written, because this cycle develops comprehension, pronunciation, and confidence. And you can increase the challenge gradually by reading longer or slightly more complex texts each week, writing reflections or new vocabulary lists from what you read, and then using those words in sentences about your own life. And journaling can also include a daily gratitude section in English, where you write 3 things you are grateful for and explain why in English, which strengthens both language skills and positive thinking. And speaking opportunities can be multiplied by using your imagination. Pretend to be a news reporter, a storyteller, or even a character from your favorite book, narrating events or daily routines in English. And record yourself, listen back, and notice improvements, because imagination makes practice enjoyable and memorable. And vocabulary can also be learned through themed mini lists. For example, creating sets of 10 words related to school, food, animals, emotions, or hobbies, and then forming at least 3 sentences for each word, which reinforces understanding, spelling, pronunciation, and practical usage. And to maintain motivation, track your progress visually using charts, stickers, or digital apps. Celebrating small wins like completing a week of daily English practice, learning new phrases, or successfully speaking to a friend in English, because progress tracking encourages persistence. And technology can amplify learning by using apps for vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar. But the key is to actively use the new knowledge, such as explaining what you learned to a family member, writing a short story, or making a mini video in English, because active use cements skills far more than passive study. And in addition to structured routines, spontaneous English practice is powerful, so whenever you encounter English in daily life, on signs, social media, song lyrics, or TV shows, take a moment to read, say aloud, or write a comment in English, because this reinforces the idea that English is part of life, not just school. And reflection is crucial, so every evening, spend 5 minutes thinking about what you learned, what was challenging, and what small improvement you can make tomorrow. Asking questions like, which new words did I use today? Or, did I speak English at least once today? And by tracking these reflections, you notice patterns of progress in areas needing more attention. And to push fluency further, engage in simple debates or discussions in English, like choosing a favorite movie or game and explaining why to a friend, because defending ideas in English strengthens vocabulary, sentence formation, and confidence. And many creative exercises, like writing dialogues between characters, composing short poems, or even describing your dreams in English, can enhance imagination, grammar, and expression while also keeping practice fun. And to integrate listening, speaking, reading, and writing together, you can follow a process called cycle learning, where you listen to a short story, read it aloud, write a summary, discuss it with a friend, and finally, use new words or expressions in your own story, because this holistic approach ensures balanced skill development. And through these steps, structured routines, daily micro habits, immersive hobbies, reflection, social interaction, creative exercises, and cycle learning, you can progressively make English not only a skill, but a living part of your life. Over weeks and months, these practices compound into natural fluency, confidence, and joy in communication, because English stops being a separate subject and becomes a lens through which you see the world, express your ideas, and connect with people globally. And the most important principle to remember throughout this journey is patience, consistency, and curiosity, because every small effort, repetition, and mistake contributes to growth. And by integrating English into your routines, hobbies, and daily experiences, you are gradually transforming it from a foreign language into a natural companion in your life, a skill that empowers you, enriches your understanding of the world, and gives you the confidence to explore, create, and communicate freely, which is the ultimate goal for any young learner aspiring to make English a permanent and joyful part of their life. Continuing on your journey to make English part of your life, once you have built daily routines, morning sessions, micro habits, and creative exercises, the next step is to deepen your practice by incorporating real-life dialogues and situational English, because fluency grows when language is connected to meaningful contexts. And you can start with simple role-playing exercises. For example, pretending to order food at a cafe, asking for directions in a new city, or explaining a game to a friend. And you can even record yourself performing these dialogues. Listen carefully and identify areas to improve pronunciation, sentence structure, or vocabulary. And as your comfort grows, increase the complexity of the situations by imagining longer scenarios, such as describing your school day in detail, giving a presentation about your favorite hobby, or even narrating a story about your weekend. Because these exercises simulate real communication, training both thinking and speaking in English simultaneously. And you can amplify this by creating small challenges for yourself, such as speaking only in English for 5 minutes during breakfast, texting your friends in English, or setting a English-only hour at home, where you think, speak, and even write exclusively in English. Because immersion, even for short periods, builds confidence and mental flexibility. And another powerful technique is to combine English with creativity. For instance, writing short stories, comic strips, or diary entries where you invent characters, dialogues, or adventures, and then read them aloud or share them with friends. Because creating content engages your imagination, reinforces vocabulary, and gives you ownership over your learning. And listening skills can be further enhanced through active media consumption, such as watching cartoons, shows, or YouTube videos in English, and then pausing frequently to repeat sentences, mimic intonation, or summarize scenes in your own words. And for songs, you can try lyric shadowing, writing down the lyrics, translating meanings, and singing along. Because music is a fun, memorable, and rhythmical way to internalize language patterns. And vocabulary can be strengthened through themed word lists and flashcards, where you group words by category: emotions, sports, food, school subjects, animals, and use them in creative sentences, short paragraphs, or mini dialogues. And you can gamify this process by challenging yourself to use all new words in conversation that day or week, giving yourself points for each successful use. Because gamification makes repetition enjoyable and motivating. And to build confidence in speaking, practice mini monologues, where you talk for 1 to 3 minutes about a topic like your favorite animal, a dream vacation, or a recent experience, recording yourself, listening, and noting areas for improvement in pronunciation, grammar, or fluency. And as you progress, increase the length and complexity of your monologues. And you can also practice storytelling aloud, where you retell a favorite story, movie plot, or comic in English, adding your own creative twists. And this strengthens narrative skills, vocabulary recall, and natural sentence flow. And to integrate all 4 language skills, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, you can follow a cycle practice routine. For example, listening to a short audio clip, reading the transcript aloud, writing a summary or diary entry about it, and then discussing it with a friend or recording your commentary. Because this holistic approach ensures that all aspects of English develop simultaneously and reinforce each other. And to maintain motivation, always set personal milestones and celebrate achievements, like successfully speaking for 10 minutes in English, completing a story, or understanding a song without looking up words. And record your progress visually through charts, stickers, or digital apps. Because recognizing growth keeps your enthusiasm high. And reflection is essential, so every evening, think about what you accomplished, what challenges you faced, and what small improvements you can aim for tomorrow. Asking yourself questions like, which new words did I use today? Or, how can I make tomorrow's English practice more fun and effective? And over time, this reflection strengthens self-awareness and learning efficiency. And you can also learn through teaching by explaining words, grammar rules, or mini stories to a friend or family member, because teaching reinforces your understanding and builds confidence. And for additional challenge, try English immersion weekends, where you read, listen, speak, and write exclusively in English for several hours, combining storytelling, role play, and creative exercises. Because concentrated immersion accelerates fluency and makes English feel like a natural part of life. And remember, progress in English is not linear, so celebrate small steps, repeat difficult tasks, and maintain a playful, curious mindset. Because every repetition, every sentence spoken, and every story written compounds into lasting skill. And finally, to conclude this comprehensive approach to making English part of your life, understand that it is a journey, not a destination. And the ultimate goal is to weave English seamlessly into your thoughts, routines, hobbies, social interactions, and creative expression, so that you are not just learning a language, but living it every day, thinking in English, expressing yourself naturally, connecting with others, exploring ideas, and embracing mistakes as learning opportunities. And by combining daily routines, micro habits, creative exercises, role playing, listening and speaking practice, gamification, reflection, teaching, immersion, and continuous curiosity, you gradually transform English from a subject to a companion, a tool, and a medium for self-expression. And over weeks, months, and years, these small but consistent efforts compound into fluency, confidence, and joy. And you will find that English is no longer a challenge, but a natural part of your life, an empowering skill that opens doors, connects you to people around the world, and allows you to share your ideas, stories, and creativity freely. And the key is persistence, patience, playfulness, and curiosity. Because with these principles, any young learner can make English a lifelong, living part of their everyday life, achieving not only language proficiency, but also a deeper sense of confidence, independence, and connection with the wider world. And this, ultimately, is the most rewarding outcome of making English an integral, joyful, and empowering part of your life.